some of this Reaper tone, and so it's going to be somewhat slow going, but what we're still going to do is we're still going to include the shadow being in here, and then we'll come back later and we'll add that in. So it's going to take a couple of passes to start to build this up, and we're going to go for something that's somewhat smooth today, but not so smooth, so not so obnoxiously smooth that it's not like we're painting this for a historical competition, right? This is leather. We want a little bit of a texture to be there, as we paint this. But the other thing that we need to think about is the fact that we're going to be wearing and weathering on this. We're going to add some dirt and some grime and grit and all that good stuff. So just keep that in mind. I'm really going to focus on this this front part for right now. So when I start to do this shading process, I like to start with a somewhat thin, I like to start with paint that's not super darkened. You want to kind of have that slow leap off that ledge before you really go all in with the super dark contrast, especially if we're trying to build something that's a little bit smoother. Generally too, I'll tend to make the back a little bit more, you can kind of see he's standing very bolt upright, and normally there's a little bit of an S curve in the back of the spine right here. So he's actually posed in kind of odd way. It's not structurally normal. Normally there's a little bit of like a leaning back shape like this. So like if this is the shoulders, this is the hips, and then this is the buttocks, and he doesn't really have that, and so we can kind of trick the viewer into feeling like it's there by making this area very dark. And then we're also going to start to just create the cylindrical shapes here on the arms. Okay, as you can see, not a whole lot of difference, right? Starting to mix gradually more. And what I like to do at this point, once I mix this, a little bit of a darker mix, is I will test it. So like I'll find an area, let's just say right here, and I'll cover a little spot of it. It's almost like painting a wall. Cover a spot of it, we'll hair dry it, and we'll take another look at it and kind of ask ourselves, hey, is this darker? Is this dark enough? Is this what I'm wanting to see? And for me right now, I would say so. It's enough of a difference without it being too dramatic, and so we will go ahead and continue. Something else that I would say is somewhat important for attempting to get a little bit of a smoother result is make sure that your brush strokes are all going in the same direction. It's a small thing, It's something that Jose Palomares Nunez, he's the head guy over at Big Child Creatives, taught me, at one crystal brush, and I was asking him for feedback, and he was kind enough to give me some, and that was what the feedback was, and that was the feedback that he gave me again shortly after when I visited in Madrid, was make sure your brushstroke, your brushstroke literally is all going in the same direction, because it kind of has like this textural, I talk a lot about camouflage and how it can confuse the eye, and that same thing goes for creating this type of smoothness, is that your brush stroke and the way that you push the brush, it has an equal effect as well on that. And so it's just something to think about, something to be conscious of. It's something that I'm now very conscious of, just because it really was a bit of a game changer in terms of how I continued on with my painting, especially when I was attempting to paint something that was smoother. So we still haven't graduated to anything like too super dark, which is really, really great. We don't want to yet, like we don't want these jumps to be too dramatic. The next jump may be a bit more dramatic, just because these first two steps have been very, very gradual. Eventually you have to make a little bit of a push into contrast, and it's also why I tend to gravitate towards these layering techniques, is that I can push like that. I can kind of push the boundary of what's gonna work, and I can still recover from it. I don't like taking forever when I paint. I like to get a result in a somewhat quick manner. Be thinking about the sculpture too. I learned a lesson from a friend in England that you only have so much time on Earth, and so if you're painting a personal project, be selective about the miniature that you're painting. Don't just paint anything that plops right in front of you. It's a big decision. As you're going to, if you just decide that you need to paint something, critique the sculpture. You're allowed to critique the sculpture. It's not something that only the pros get to do. It's something that we all get to do to some extent, because if there's a problem with it, the sculptor also wants to know. I mean, you don't have to be rude or anything about it, but so think about the form, think about the anatomy. As you can tell, we just made another jump in our shadow. This is a little bit more of a bold jump. It may be a little bit too strong, but we will see.